Ready to open the hood? UseTool for the tutorials.
And for car parts, the right idea is the Mr. Auto app. Easy, fast, and with better prices than on the website.
You can find the bulk rear axle used in the video exclusively on the Mr. Auto website and under the link in the description. Turn your engine off and pull up the handbrake. Loosen the rear wheel studs. Lift the rear of your vehicle. We strongly suggest watching the tutorial, raising your vehicle safely before carrying out this step. Place the vehicle on the axle stands. You must remove the wheels in order to change the rear axle on your vehicle. This will give you full access to the suspension system. Don't forget to slide the wheels under the vehicle. You can now see the rear drums of your car. Using a hammer and a chisel, remove the rear hub nut cover. Using a breaker bar and a 32mm socket, release the hub nut and remove it. Then remove the drum. Using a socket wrench, an extender and a T45 torque socket, unscrew the four rear plate holder retaining screws. Now you need to remove the ABS sensor. Using a socket wrench and a 10mm socket, unscrew the screw holding the ABS sensor in place. Pry out the ABS sensor with a flathead screwdriver. Using a flathead screwdriver, remove the ABS sensor cable from its retaining brackets. Move the brake fluid hose aside. Brush the mounting bracket for the brake and ABS sensor hoses and spray it with penetrating oil. Using a socket wrench, an extender and a 13mm socket, unscrew the screw holding the brake hose retaining bracket and the ABS sensor cable in place. Using a flathead screwdriver, remove the handbrake cable hose from its retaining studs. Remove the hub seal. Using a flathead screwdriver, pry out the plate to remove it from the hub. Fit a wire or hook to the mudguard to hold the drum brake assembly in place when you next use it. You can now remove the drum on the other side in the same way. Next, using an 18mm spanner to stop the nut from rotating, a socket wrench and an 18mm socket, release the top screw on the shock absorber. With a socket wrench, a 21mm socket and a 21mm spanner, remove the lower holding screw on the shock absorber. Remove the screw. You can use a pin punch to help you remove it. Remove the upper screw. You can now extract the shock absorber. You can now remove the shock absorber on the other side in the same way. To lower the exhaust muffler, the left rear axle crossbar needs to be moved aside by unscrewing the bracket. Using a socket wrench, an extender and a 13mm socket, unscrew the three screws holding the bracket in place. As the components to be removed are very often seized up, don't hesitate to brush and to use penetrating oil to facilitate the operation. Using a flathead screwdriver, unclip the handbrake cables from the axle bar. Then unclip them from the reservoir. Now you need to move the muffler aside. Using a flathead screwdriver, remove the two silent blocks that hold the exhaust muffler in place. Position it on an elevated surface so that you don't have to dismantle it completely. To facilitate the removal of the rear axle, hold the axle in position by supporting it with a jack positioned on the clevis joint. Using a breaker bar, an extender and an 18mm socket, remove the 4 rear axle retaining screws. You can now remove the rear axle. Lower the jack slowly, taking care not to pull on any part. On the axle joint, retrieve the 4 handbrake cable mounting clips by cutting them off using a screwdriver and wire cutters. Brush the 2 screws holding the crossbars to the clevis joint and spray them with penetrating oil. Then, using a breaker bar and an 18mm socket, unscrew the 2 screws holding the crossbars in place. Brush and spray the 4 clevis joint retaining screws with penetrating oil. Using a socket wrench and a 16mm socket, unscrew the 4 screws holding the clevis joint in place. Then remove it. Turn over the axle. Brush the screw holding the handbrake cable mounting bracket in place and spray it with penetrating oil. Next, using a 19mm spanner, unscrew the screw holding the handbrake cable retaining bracket in place. Repeat the operation on the other side. Using a socket wrench, an extender and a 13mm socket, unscrew the last 3 screws holding the bracket in place. In a vise, remove the screw holding the brackets and axle crossbars together using a breaker bar and an 18mm socket. In this case, as it is often the case, the silent block was stuck in the bracket. Don't hesitate to brush and to spray with penetrating oil. Hit with a hammer and use a pipe wrench to remove it. Sand the inside of the bracket with fine sanding paper to prepare for the installation of the new crossbar.
Okay, guys, if we can share this video with you and help you save a lot of money, is also thanks to our partner, Mr. Auto. So, if you want to support us and buy the part for this operation, visit their website. Okay, back to work.
You will find the bulk parts and products used in the video on the Mr. Auto site and in the link in the description. Screw the handbrake cable retaining brackets back on. Screw the brackets back onto the rear axle. Finish off the tightening with a torque wrench. Put the clevis joint back onto the axle. Next, before you finish tightening, use a tape measure to make sure the clevis joint is perfectly centered on the axle. Finish tightening the first 2 screws of the clevis joint using a torque wrench. Turn the axle over, then finish tightening the last 2 clevis screws. Take the plastic clips holding the handbrake cables in place and using wire cutters, cut off the remaining ends of the clips. Replace them with hose clamps, then install them on the axle. Using the jack, lift the new axle and slowly position it in its slot. Once in place, secure it by screwing the 4 fixing screws back on until they make contact. Finish tightening with a torque wrench. Clip the handbrake cables back onto the reservoir. Then clip them back onto the plastic parts. You can now put the exhaust muffler back in place by putting the silent blocks back in place. You can find the rear axle crossbars used in the video on the Mr. Auto website and under the link in the description. Take the crossbar and start by installing it in the clevis joint. Insert the retaining screw and screw it back on roughly. To avoid damaging the silent blocks, you need to finish tightening the retaining screws with the rear axle in the vehicle on the ground position. Lift the rear axle with a jack. Position the crossbar against the bracket, then screw it back on with a socket wrench. Screw the crossbar retaining screw back on. Finalize the tightening of the screws with a torque wrench. Remove the jack. Repeat the operation on the opposite crossbar. You can now put the shock absorbers back in place. Then screw the 4 retaining screws back on using the jack techniques to avoid damaging the silent blocks. Once under pressure, finalize the tightening of the screws with a torque wrench. Remove the jack. Detach the drum brakes and put them back onto the hub. Take the 4 screws holding the plate in place and coat them with Threadlocker. Then screw them back on. Finish off the tightening with a torque wrench. Screw the brackets holding the brake hoses and ABS sensor cable back on. Clip the brake hoses and ABS sensor cables back into the plastic parts. Put the ABS sensor back in place and screw them back on. Clip the handbrake cables back into their metal holders. Put the seals back onto the hubs. put the drums back in place. Then screw the hub nuts back on using a torque wrench. You can now trim the hub nuts using a thin chisel. Refit the nut covers. Then you will be able to put the wheels back on your vehicle. Put the car back on the ground and plug the wheels securely. Operation completed.
Hi, it's Theo from UseTool. I hope this video has helped you a lot in your car maintenance. We will be super grateful if you could spread the word so that we can produce even more tutorials. Simply give us a like, a comment, and hit that subscribe button. It really helps us boost the channel and help the whole community. Thanks a lot and have a great one.